be a partial. Don't go and sell me out there. I'm just doing this for learning purposes. So if you look here, this is now on a platform. Remember, among the platform I've given example of, or I've recommended, I've said we have KOBO, we have ODK, and then we have Honor. So I'll be biased more with these three platforms because these are the platforms that I've been using. Okay, so if you look at this one is now a server for World Vision, and they're doing a lot of M&D project. So let me just open one. And now with this one, this is where now the organization had to pay for this platform and they own it. So I don't have rights to have other surveys in this platform. But if you look at this other one, now for KOBO, this is my own platform. And I have 3 different organizations that I'm in charge of, but now I'm using one server to have different forms. For need assessment, I think this questionnaire you have it. Let me just go. Perfect. So I have all these questionnaires. Most of them we have been using in class. So this one is the need assessment for Garissa County, and you can see that the organization is TDH, Terrace D Homes, and here we have, I think, the wash project. This one is for Tifa, and then lastly we have the, I think that those are enough. Let me just use those for now. So what am I communicating to you? I'm just saying you can combine several organizations in one server as long as they're comfortable with you collecting their data in your server. If they're a bit restrictive, you can have one server per organization, which is the I think it's the most many servers as possible. Now let me give you a brief overview of what KOBO is all about. Now KOBO is why is KOBO a big deal? I think that's where we should start. So once you go to KOBO humanitarian response, if you click on create an account, you realize it says what? This instance of KOBO Toolbox is hosted and supported by UNOCHA and can be used by any humanitarian organization. So this platform is provided by United Nations Agency, and OCHA is now the organization that deals with coordination of all United Nations agencies. For instance, what I mean with agencies, so you have UNEP, you have UNHCR, you have IOM, you have UNESCO. So all those organizations that are under the umbrella of United Nations, they do a lot of surveys and collection of data. Let me use an example. I think I have a data set here, and most of these things you can request so that I share them with you. Of course, I don't mind. It's for your own good. Okay, so if you look at what I'm presenting to you, now this one is a database, and as you can see, it's a huge one because it cuts across almost all the sectors. So we have healthcare, we have safe, we have nutrition, education, wash, SNFI, which is non-food items. We have protection, we have a lot of it. And as you can see, it was a collaboration between all these organizations. So it's something that was done in Nigeria, but you can see the organizations that collaborated in collecting all this data are mostly under the OCHA, which is now the Coordination for Humanitarian Agencies. Okay, and now instead of each of them going and collect data on their own, so you realize they come up as a consortium and then say, hey, we are in the field of surveys and humanitarian work, so can we collect one data or have one database? So OCHA, in collaboration with Harvard University, they provided now this platform as a free platform. And to ensure there's quality, or there's now in safeguarding the data, all that data is hosted by this agency. Now, because it's a free platform, you realize most organizations or most NGO trust this platform. So if you have a skill of using KOBO, you realize now that will give you, okay, I think I should be recording this class. Perfect, I think we're good. So if you have a skill on how to use KOBO, that gives you a upper hand in working with so many organizations. I've just given you an example. If you look here, then it means you have a chance to work with all these organizations that you're seeing presented here, because that's the platform that they trust. Okay, so why is it a big deal? It's a big deal because it's one, KOBO is a free platform. Two, KOBO is trusted by most of the organization. Three, I think you have a chance to share or collaborate with other organizations in surveys. So I want you to create your own account. So just go and key in your name. Organization, you can create any, or if you don't have any organization in mind, just have Dalot. And then fill in all your details. Username, I want you to have a username that you can remember, because later I'll be teaching you on how to link your phone and this server, because now we will be down. We need to have this questionnaire in all the respective phones. So if you have 20 research assistants out there doing data collection for you, you will need each of their phones to have this questionnaire. And for them to access this questionnaire of yours, you will need to know that username. So key in your full names, have a username that you can remember. Of course, also an email address, because they will be sending to you an activation link so that you activate that account. So of course, have an email that you can access it. In terms of sector, you can select any sector for now, but just in case you have a specific project, then you can be able to select from the list that is provided. I would encourage you choose any of the humanitarian. Maybe it can be coordination and information management, or health, or logistics, whichever you opt for. You should be good to go. Now let's talk about country and why is it a big deal. So when you're creating this country, the country part, you should now have it as country of residence. But later, when we will be now coming up with a project, we also have a chance to select country. And why is it, or what is the big deal about country? Like for now, currently, you can find that I'm a consultant here in Kenya, but I'm doing a lot of project in Somalia. So when I'm creating my server, I will select my country as Kenya. But when I have a specific project, let's say like this one is a project in Nigeria, okay, which is a multi-sectoral need assessment. I don't know. Now that means during now that survey, when you are creating that survey project, you will say the country of survey is Nigeria or the country of survey is Somali. And that will help you because at some point we will have to collect the geolocation. And with geolocation, or sometimes we call it now the GPS, and with GPS, we will need satellite. Let me explain that so that we are on the same page. If you look at this, so as you are, of course, as I'm explaining whatever I'm explaining, you should be creating your account. And if you look at this survey, why is geolocation a big deal? Geolocation will help you in mapping because now you need, sometimes donors want to know, are you sure that the data you are presenting to them is actually a true reflection of what really happens? That's why I said sometimes these guys are really serious about the quality of data. It's not just about collecting data, but also what type of data are you collecting? Okay. So if you look at this one now, by use of GPS or the use of satellite, I can easily see or access where my data is coming from. And this is possible because I've connected with what? With satellite. So if you put your country of origin as Nigeria, or not, sorry, where you're doing your survey as Nigeria, it will be much easier for your research assistant to connect with the satellite around that location, as opposed when you put their location as Kenya, and of course we'll discuss this, you realize now it will be hard for now those phones to locate the satellite real time in Nigeria, because now it will focus more with the satellite that is within the space of Kenya. And why is this important? With this database, you will realize that now you can also be able to access details of your research assistant in real time. And when I say real time, basically is every time somebody sends something to me, I have to know where is that. That means I can be able again to track that phone. And of course, we look at this in terms of metadata, whereby we can tell, oh, can we also extract the details of that phone so that if I have, for instance, let's say I have 20 research assistants, I will know without even them knowing that I'm tracking them. And let me use an example of what I'm presenting right now. So if you look at my screen, now these are several points where my data is coming from. Let me just come here. So what am I saying? You realize that I can tell if someone is sitting down and just filling some questionnaire and send to me, because I will know if 10 minutes ago, for instance, Marianne was here. If you send again 2 forms in this same location, then I will know, no, you are sending to me something that is not correct. But I can tell, like, okay, Marianne sent some data when at 10:30 she was here, and then she had walked this distance. Now you're sending from, let's say, a different location. In an event that you are sending maybe 2 forms in the same location, then I'll know you're cooking data. And that's when I can just fire you from wherever you are without even being there. Okay. So anyway, what am I emphasizing here? I'm just emphasizing on quality of data. And even when you'll be attending those interviews and they ask you, how do you ensure that the data you will be collecting is up to standard? You can bring in the aspect of, by using GPS coordinates, you can be able to track down where this data is coming from. Secondly, Of course, I've already mentioned about baseline, midterm, end term, and also need assessment. Now, you realize when you do a need assessment, when you're doing baseline survey, it's always important that again you will collect data mostly from the same geolocation. Okay, so when I'm doing my second survey, which is now baseline, I would still want to collect data from the same households, because that is where now I had data on their needs. So if I'm to start to understand where the issue is, I should again go back to the same household. Two, I think we talked about this during quantitative on when you get missing cases. Sometimes you realize, and of course we'll talk about it later, you may find a respondent who might say, I'm not willing to participate in this survey. And then why is that? Because, for instance, in a culture like in the survey I was doing in Fafi, you realize in Garissa, based on their culture, maybe a woman or a young lady is not supposed to be asking questions older men. So you walking into a household, and the household head is somebody who's an elderly person, but you're a lady. So you realize that household head will not be willing to participate in that survey because of their cultural beliefs. So what does that mean? So to me, as a research or a data manager, I would want to know if a form comes to me as a form that somebody was not willing to participate in that survey. I need to ask that research assistant what was the reason behind them not participating. If it was maybe because of cultural reason, then of course I can send in now another person to the same household, maybe who meets the criteria that makes those guys who make my respondent more comfortable to give me their data. Anyway, I think most of these things we'll discuss as we move on. Of course, we have a lot of time to spend with this survey, but let me hope you have managed to create your account and also you have logged in. So create your KOBO account and also log in. And where we're going to start is by creating a new project. So if you click on new, I hope we're all good. So just create your account, go to your email address, you will get an activation link. Once you activate your link, you will have an interface like what you're seeing right now. Also feel free to, maybe later, you can also have an honor.io account, and then if we find time, we can be comparing what are the difference between KOBO platform and honor, and also ODK. For honor, of course, I've emphasized that KOBO is a free platform. That means you don't pay for you to use it. And the reason why you're not paying it is because it's a platform that was donated to humanitarian organization. For this other platform like honor.io, you realize it's not a free platform. Now, organization needs to pay in order to use such a platform. Now, this is another way of you now arguing your point, because sometimes when you come in as a consultant, you realize the objective of most of these organizations is to minimize the cost implication of running any survey. So if you can use a platform that you're not paying, that will give you an upper hand even in getting those tender. Now, and of course, now that I'm mentioning those tender, for those who will be joining the project management class, I normally teach on how to respond on TOR. And TOR is now where organizations like now World Vision, I think we have the USAID, UKAID, they normally now advertise for consultants so that they can come in and maybe now take such kind of job. And these jobs are actually things that you can do in 1 week, 2 weeks. And yeah, of course, that is subject now to that class. Of course, we will be discussing more in the project management class on how to get this kind of work. Now, if you have logged in, so where do you start? I want us to code this questionnaire called IBC demonstration, impact of IBC demonstration, and I will be using KOBO, but here we just learn data entry or data collection. So let me not dive into some complex stuff or of how to manage NGOs. So for now, I assume you are just a data manager who wants to know how to code a questionnaire into that server, and also you want to know how do you connect Android devices to your server and see some real-time data collection. So if you go to new, there are two ways. Of course, I'm biased to two ways of coding a questionnaire. So today we will be building from scratch, which I prefer that, but at an advanced level, of which sometimes for those who are a bit advanced in these things that I'm talking about, you can now request for a customized training on how to use Excel. I don't know if I have it here with me, but you can code your questionnaire in an Excel and then just upload that Excel in your server. I think you can remind me so that I'll show you later on how to I think I'll just share with you guys on the class WhatsApp group on that form or the template, that an Excel template that you can upload to your server. But for today, let me just opt for building from scratch. So if you come and click build from scratch, you need to enter the name or the title of the project. So in this case, I'll say what the project is: impact of IBC demonstration to businesses in CBD. I'll just copy paste. I think that's the most preferred way. And then I can give it a description, but it's an optional. So for now, let me say demonstration. Okay. Demonstration survey 2023. And of course, even I think if you're a kid, I hope there's no one here who works for KEPSA, so that again you don't incriminate me. But you can go and advise even this government right now on how those things are. So this questionnaire, you can use it. Just change from I think it was 2013 when I did this, but you can adjust it now to 2023. Sector. You can select any sector. So let me choose private sector, because KEPSA is the private. I think KEPSA stands for what? Private Sector Alliance, something like that. I'm not so sure. But it's a private organization. It's for businesses consortium. And then this is where I talked about country. So when I'm setting up this project, I would say this project is in Kenya. Okay, so that when I'll need the GPS, it will be easy for me to access the satellite. So this one is a bit different from the country when you are setting up the server. Okay, I think I've lost whatever I was doing. I have to start afresh. Saying in sector, I will select private. Country, let me just have Kenya. And then if I create a project, now we're good to go. So this is where we are going to start. And what are the rules now? Okay. So first thing you need to know is we need to talk about, let's understand first the type of variables that are there. Because now there are variables that you need to code. Oh, I think this is a simple questionnaire. I think it doesn't have a lot. So basically what I'm trying to dive at is now the concept of metadata. Because when you have a questionnaire, for instance, like this WASH project, I think this one is okay. Like for instance, when I talk about this one, you realize there are some details that you don't necessarily need to code on the server, because the server can extract that details for you automatic. An example is date. You don't have to code date here in your server, because you can instruct by just checking on your server. You will, of course, it will automatically collect for you date when that survey was done. I think also the server can be able to extract mobile phone numbers for each of those phones. Things like timestamp, what time does it take for each questionnaire to be filled? Again, that is important, because you realize now if you find discrepancy in time, because now you can say maybe it takes 10 minutes to fill one questionnaire. Now you can monitor that comparing now on the different response. So you realize maybe Alfred takes 5 minutes to send to me his questionnaires. But on the other hand, if I look at Simon's work, Simon sends to me questionnaire in 10 minutes time. So that sends a discrepancy to me, whereby like, okay, why is it that one research assistant takes longer than the other? Is it that one of them is not paying attention, or one of them is just filling in? Okay, so those are some of the data that I can be able to see using this server, and we will do that together. Now, and I'm referring to those information as metadata. In quantitative analysis class, I explain metadata as those information which are useful, not for analysis purposes, but they're useful for data collection. Once you're done with data collection, you're not going to sit down and say, hey, I'm analyzing date, or I'm analyzing serial number of a questionnaire. I hope you understand what I mean here. So in this case, the first item that you will have to code is now what you call the introduction part. Of course, you have to introduce yourself. So I'm assuming now you have your research assistant out there. And the first thing they need to do is they must inform the respondent on what all these things are about. Because you get somebody out there, you not just go and start asking them about their business. Of course, you have to introduce yourself and say, hey, maybe I'm so and so, I work with this organization. So the first item before even introduction is I need to locate research assistant. So I would want the research assistant to be logging in. So I will just write the first question as assistant name, and in this case now I need my research assistant to locate their details. So let me just pick few. Now this one is a select one. That means we cannot have two Winnie logging in the same area. So I'll have my first research assistant as Winnie. 2, let me have Simon. I can have Alfred. Who else is here? And then let me start with Muga. Just for demonstration purposes. So assuming I've employed 4 of you, so that means before you even start filling any questionnaire, you must select your name. Okay. Now I will have to make this mandatory. That means you cannot go to the next question unless you have selected who you are. And how do I do that? If I go to settings, now I'll make this question mandatory, whereby you cannot skip selecting your name, so that if you send to me a form, of course, I will be able to get details of that phone. So I'll know this phone number is the one which is sending me this data. But also it's good when I can be able to identify you with your name. I hope that makes sense. Once I've made that mandatory, you can just close from that.
Adams?
Hello?
Yeah, just before you proceed, I'm sorry to take you back.
No problem.
When you adding the names, where did you click to have options for adding those particular names? Probably I missed that.
Okay, let's come up again. Let me just, and again, if I'm moving fast, feel free to let me know. So I said the first place is you add, so there's this plus sign, and then assistant. Once you have the name of the variable, you add a question, and then I said you select one. And then now you have several options. The first option, now you edit. Now when you say option 1, option 2, just delete what is currently there. And then I'll say now Winnie, Alfred, Simon, Muga. Then let me have myself. I should also, I'm part of the class, so I'll have George. And then now you go to this side. So the first option is on settings. The second is on deleting. You can duplicate a question, or you can add it to a library. So I'll not be talking much about adding to a library, but if you go to settings, now you have an option to make it mandatory, and then you close from here. Again, don't worry, I think also this session is recorded, so hopefully you should be good to go with accessing it more often. And then if you want to add another question, you go to the same plus sign. Now this time, let's talk about the introduction. So once you have logged in and say, hey, I'm Kennedy, so what's the next thing? You need to introduce what the survey is all about. And sometimes you realize during this data collection process, we normally encourage you to employ individuals who are locals. So if I'm doing a survey in Fafi, I don't have to employ research assistants from Nairobi and then I'm taking them to Garissa to collect for me data there. And you realize if you're doing a survey, maybe like for instance, this project WASH, I was doing this one in Kilifi, and you realize I think it's now that the Shakahola is making Kilifi more famous, but you realize there are some places in there that even finding someone who maybe is a graduate is hard. Okay, so you realize you will be forced to work with locals, and maybe the level of education of those locals is not up to standard. But again, those are the people who know all the roads in those villages. So the best way is just copy pasting the introduction part so that they will be reading to their respondents. Okay, so I'll just copy paste the entire part of introduction, but now the introduction is not a question. That should make sense. Introduction, you're not expecting any response from your respondent, but you're just introducing what the survey is all about. So I will paste the entire text, but again, you can combine we call it acknowledgement or consent, and then we have the introduction part. But with the introduction, I would advise that you put them separately, whereby the first part, let it be a note. That means you're not expecting any result out of it. The respondent, the research assistant will just be reading that paragraph to the respondent. So when you select a note, that means you're not expecting any answer, but it will appear as a question that somebody can just be reading out to the respondent. Of course, we will see how it appears during the data collection process. So for now, just copy the entire paragraph for introduction and then add it as a note, because you'll be reading that note to your respondent. After reading down the note, you need to prompt a consent, whereby now you will ask that respondent, after you have understand the introduction part, now you ask them, are you willing to participate in this survey? And what are the options? If you add a question, now you'll say it's still a select one, but the first option is yes. That means they are consenting to proceed. Or if they're not comfortable, now they will opt for no. Now, what are the implications of this? In real time, you'll say if somebody says yes, then that is when they are now supposed to be seeing the rest of the question. But if somebody says no, then you need to prompt, or you need to put some setting in this survey, so that if you click no, it should end the process, because there's no business of you cannot force a respondent to participate in a survey. So if they say yes, they will see other questions. If they say no, the server needs to end the whole process. So of course we will see how that works. Now I'll add another question, and now I'll go specific now to this questionnaire of ours. And of course I don't need to code the interviewer name, because we already have it. Also, I'm not so sure if it's a good idea to be asking respondents their name, because you need to ensure, because you have promised these guys on confidentiality. Because when you ask someone for some personal details, for instance, you ask a respondent for their name or maybe for their phone number, you realize that can be a trigger for someone not to participate in that survey. So I always encourage people, don't ask people for their names. Okay, so this one I will not be coding the name of that respondent, but instead I will go to their gender. So minimize on demographic. So the demographic information, gender is enough. Things like name, phone number, ID number, those personal details, shy away from them. So the first question that I'll code is gender. So gender is a single select. That means someone can only choose one option. Either you're a male or a female. I don't want to dive into the debate of the modern guys, or I don't know, they have now a third option. I don't know what they call it. But if I add question, select one, I'll have male. The second option is female. Of course, by now I'm sure we are starting getting comfortable. After gender, we have name of business. A name of business, because you don't have prior names of businesses, so this one will be an open-ended question. That means somebody will tell you the name of their business. So when I add a question, I will not opt for select one, but instead I will go for text, because it's open-ended. Somebody will. So somebody will have to write the name of their business. So I will opt for text. Next question, location of business. And here they want to know the street name. So of course, I prefer to copy paste. I think I'll be able to move fast. So I'll add a question. And of course, again, this one will be a text. location of business, so they're referring to the building. Again, I'll just copy paste, add a question, and then still it's a text. I don't have to do all of them, so let me just, for telephone number, it's relevant in this survey to collect telephone number, because you are trying to, because KEPSA have their own objective, and then maybe they would want to maybe do a follow-up later in terms of mitigating the effect of now this demonstration on this business. But now this is where now you as a data manager, you need to understand the context of the survey you're doing. Okay. Now, maybe let me just have designation as the last option, because this one again is an open-ended. There's nothing much to learn there. I believe we are now comfortable with that. So, of course, you said add, copy and paste, add question. It's still a text.